things that struck me, I think this footage was early on in the film, was I think it was Danny with James Taylor.
Yeah.
And their relationship, like the beginning of their relationship, I mean, they were friends before they started playing together.
Met as teenagers, probably 13 and 15 years old in the Cape. And every summer they would go there and they see each other. I don't think they were friends outside of that at that point, but they would see each other. They would play music and have and that's how that started. And so then then they get a band together, in the city. And at that point, they're probably 18, 19 in that area. Excuse me. And Danny, they said, why don't you call it the James Taylor Group? He goes, no, I don't want James Taylor, the Flying Machine. Yeah. Which is really interesting because you look at all of them, even at the end of the movie, when they all talk about the guys themselves, talk about, we don't want to be a solo artist. We want to be part of a band. In a weird way, James was, I think, the same thing. I think he was, in Carol, she didn't want to be a solo artist. She was very panicked about doing that. Yeah. So in a weird way, there's that kind of person that wants to be part of something and not be the focus. Yeah. So it's interesting that all three of all those guys and those two.
Was it always, I guess that's the difference between the Wrecking Crew and the immediate family. It was just assumed with the immediate family, like, we're going to record this and we're going to go out on the road and we're going to play.
I think timing is everything. Here's the thing with the Wrecking Crew, for those who don't really know the backstory, they were used because the labels were knocking out music very quickly. Rock and roll in 1961, 62, it's at its infancy. You're talking about what, 5-6 years, right, what we're calling this even rock and roll probably. So LA's got this thing going. They got the Beach Boys, they got the surf sound, they got some of the pop music. But then Spectre comes in. LA starts getting traction. And because they have an infrastructure going on, they had the studios, they had all that there in the artists and the musicians, they could find people to play this music, rock and roll stuff. Well, with radio, and that's the other thing about radio starts playing top 40. Now they can sell albums or sell this singles, whatever, because the radio's pushing it, and obviously now it's back and forth, they're feeding off each other. But hey, if we're going to make money on this, we can't be spending a lot of money in the studio with these groups. They don't know, they're not that good, the recording bands, and they were just the bands that were on the road with these people a lot of times. So and sometimes they were good, but the producers didn't trust them. So they would basically hire the studio players like my father and Hal Blaine and Carol Kay and Glenn Campbell, Don Randy, and those guys. And Leon Russell, they're in the studio knocking out 3-hour session. And what you could do legally, meaning union-wise, they said you can only do 3 or 4 songs in 3 hours. What they didn't want you to do is knock out an album in 3 hours because it was just like a car. We're going to slow it down. So they basically, which is amazing because they did knock out 3 songs in 3 hours, and those would go on the album, and that was it. So a single let's say a single becomes a hit, another one they decide, okay, let's put an album together. Now we're getting working up our way on the charts, so they figure that out. So, but no one went on the road, and at this point, my father's working 3 or 4 dates a day in 1967. If you look at his tax returns, which I did, it was like, holy God. I didn't realize, I put it in today's terms, it's like, holy shit, that was crazy. But they were so in demand at this point. You didn't go on the road. It didn't pay well. If you go, Glenn went on the road. Why did Glenn go on the road? They paid him to take over Brian Wilson's part. That's different. Don Randy and Hal sometimes will go on the road with Nancy Sinatra, but they didn't, again, they didn't go on the road for long periods of time because you don't want to lose your chair. Yeah. And that was the mindset. There's 8 other guitar players that's going to play the same like my father. A Telecaster's a Telecaster. Most of those guys, can play the same riff, whatever. Where he was safe was his acoustic playing and his reading ability. So that he was fine. No one's they're booking him way in advance for that.
He could read upside down, I hear.
Exactly. But so those guys basically didn't ever leave town. We just didn't do it. So now the late 60s come in, the bands are better. Now, what's interesting is when you see Leland, Russ, Danny, not Waddy yet, in 71, when they're doing those albums, Sweet Baby James and Tapestry and all that stuff, they're still, and this is where the light bulb went off when I was interviewing Peter Asher. Peter said, I said something about legends, and Peter goes, they weren't legends. They were just our friends. And I realized, oh, you're right. These are the first albums that they're doing in 72, right? So I'm thinking 71, 72, they're kind of like starting off. In 67, in the heyday of my father, he's already been doing it for 10 years. So there's a gradual, there's no, these guys are starting off right off at the top in a weird way. Russ Kunkel's first three albums, what was it, 71? He's Joni Mitchell's Blue, Sweet Baby James, and Tapestry.
Yeah.
Quit.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're done. That's it.
You've already reached your pinnacle.
Right.
You know,
go home.
So but they're not busy in the studios yet. So that's what I'm trying to say is they're doing it, but they're not.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They could stay. And now their opportunity to go record and then take it on the road was a whole different animal. And they started doing it because they could. And they start getting busy. Now they're just getting paid for it to go on the road. And Jackson said, I had to pay those guys.
Yeah.
Jackson, he was talking about it. And same with David Crosby. Those guys, if you wanted them, you had to pay for them to go on the road, which was right. And that changed the business. You know, the other thing that changed the business were the tracks. You didn't need to, when Dad's working in the 1962, he's working in mono. Yeah. So you had, like Glenn Campbell said, everybody in the room was a Michael Jordan. No mistakes, because you got 10, 15 people on the Spectre date. If you make a mistake, you got to start all over. No one's popping in with computers or cutting tape. So you didn't mess up. That's and then in the late 60s, you got a few tracks. You can lay down that solo as many times as you want because you got an open trap. Yeah. So it changed. And FM, that's the other big thing. FM changes. LPs come out now. Yeah. Long play, you're listening, you're looking at those credits, you're seeing these weird names: Waddy, Wartel, Cooch, Leland, Sklar, Russ Kunkel. Didn't sound real.
Actually, yeah, that reminds me. So from the James Taylor in the Pocket,
that's a great album.
The best thing is this picture.
Oh wow!
It's all the players.
Oh my God!
You don't show that.
No,
this was like. James was like, this is the band. This is everyone who's created everything in the studio. And they put it on the back of this.
Lenny Waronker and George Bohannon is the trombone player. Oh God, Levant. Oh, that must be Gail. There's Lindley. Oh, this is so cool.
Right.
I don't remember opening this up at this point.
I don't either. I don't remember this.
This is wild.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. I got to recut the film. I'm serious. Why did I miss that?